We're live.
Yeah, I know.
Hi,
I'm
hi
like,
everyone.
Hello, everyone.
hello. Assalamu
So,
alaikum. This is Nahid Akhtar. Let's move on to Fayaz.
this is Fayaz Hassan, and
And this is Ifti. It's so nice
okay,
to
so
meet you
what are
guys.
we going to talk about today, guys?
Okay. Today we are going to talk about the speaking modules of IELTS and we are going to
Yes.
share some tips regarding that. But before that, we'll only discuss about part one. So let's go on with it. But first, we'll give a formal introduction about the IELTS speaking exam. So moving on to Ifti, why don't you introduce?
Well, first of all, the exam starts off with part one. With what basically happens in part one is you get a series of questions, but you shouldn't answer them descriptively. You should actually answer them briefly. Let's just say about 2 to 3 sentences. You'll have about 8 to 10 questions in this part, and you'll move on to part two. I'd like to ask Fayaz, why don't you say about part two?
All right, so in part two, we get a cue card. We have a couple of pointer questions which we have to talk about while we're speaking. So if we have about 1 minute to prepare and 2 minutes to speak, so we must prepare the script in a minute, and we have to point out all the questions that are in the cue card on the 2 minutes that we're speaking in. So Nahida, what about part three?
Okay, part three is basically a follow up of part two, basically the cue card. So after you're done with your cue card, the questions that will come to part three will be related to the cue card. So you just answer those questions, but beware, you must not answer them briefly. It must be descriptively, and at least 5 to 6 sentences you have to speak about. And mostly the questions are a type of mixture of tenses. So the examiner expects you to answer it in various kind of tense. Like suppose some questions will come in past tense, some questions in present tense, and some maybe in future tense too.
Yes.
Apart from there, you will be expected to use a wide range of vocabularies, but not any vocabularies. It must be topic related vocabularies. There's the place where the students make mostly the mistake. Like they think that vocabularies can be any vocabularies. No, it must be related to the topic. It must make sense what you're talking about. So the more
Yes.
vocabulary you could use, the more it's better for you. But then also we must like the speaking part, it's based on four criteria, so we must keep in our head that we must answer according to those four criteria. So moving on to Ifti, why don't you give an example of some idioms and phrases?
Well,
I'm
it's
sorry.
good to use some idioms and phrases during your IELTS speaking exam. Well, you could use a lot of idioms such as "I fell from the sky" when I heard about the news, or "I was over the moon" when I heard the news. Well, you can use a variety of idioms and phrases. We'll be sharing idioms and phrases later on in this video, or maybe later on in our pages. So keep your heads up for that. And
Yes.
let's
Okay, it's
moving
okay
on
with
to.
our like formal introduction with our speaking part. So now
Mhm.
we'll move on to part one. Like today, we'll discuss about part one. But before that, I would like to ask Fayaz, what do you think? Is speaking test confined to formal speaking or informal speaking can be done?
Of course, it's not formal. It's informal. Though we can use some formal aspects, it is mostly informal. So it tests if we can carry out a conversation or explain what is in our head, right? In the
So,
speaking exam.
if they would you like to like enlighten us more with that?
Well, what basically Fayazbhai said is true. Most of us think that it's like a formal interview, which is not the case. It's basically an informal way, or informal. It's basically a test which sees whether we can converse in English or not. The examiner basically sees if we are capable of conversing in English. A lot of people think it's an interview where you have to dress up formally and give formal answers which you would expect to give in an interview, but that's not the case. The examiner just sees your language. They see how you use the language, and yeah, like that.
How how well you can convey your ideas by speaking informally, right? Okay. And
Yep.
other from that, can you explain like about what things a student could keep in their mind while answering the part one?
Well, some if I would like to point out a few basic tips. Well, a lot of students what they miss out when giving these exams is they tend to give short answers. For example, when they say, do you study or do you work? The answers are usually I study or currently I'm a student. Well, it should be more elaborate. More, for example, it should be, well, currently I'm a student in North South University doing civil engineering. You should add context to your statement, or you should actually elaborate your statement. And other tips include like just not making it short. You should at least do 2 to 3 sentences in part one.
Of course.
So moving on to Fayaz, what do you say about part one? Like give some
So-
examples too. But how can a student answer part one?
So part one basically starts off with a kind of like a formal introduction, like what is your name, what should I call you, and you know, can you show me your ID and all that. But after that, we start getting questions related to a topic. You know, maybe they could ask about your hometown, and then after they ask about your hometown, they might go into specific aspects like, oh, how many people play sports in your hometown, or what kind of sports do you play in your hometown. So at that point we're like, okay, this exam is going to be about sports, or they're going to talk about sports a lot or outside activities a lot. So we can get a basic idea of how the exam is going to get carried out from the questions in part one. And of course we answer them. It's like short, it's brief, it's not short, it's a brief answer. It's a one liner. It's a one sentence answer. But it's not like one or two word. Not like yes or no. Or do you play football? You can't be like yes, yes. You can just say like.
So we should
yes.
avoid answering in one word.
Yeah.
Instead, it should be of 2 sentences if possible.
Yeah, one to one to two sentences.
Before we move on, we actually have a comment. So the first comment is made by Raju Ahmed Raja, and he says,
says-
"Ami Vijay Master." Well, he actually commented again, and he's actually asking us a question. Ami bhat khaitesi. A English ki hobe bole. Okay, so
আমি ভাত
would you?
খাইতেছি।
Yes, would anyone
আপনি
of you like?
ভাতটা কোন সময় খাচ্ছেন ভাই? আপনি ভাতটা কি সকালে খাচ্ছেন নাকি দুপুরে খাচ্ছেন নাকি রাত্রে খাচ্ছেন? So if আপনি যদি সকালে খান তাহলে ওটা হবে I am having my breakfast. আপনি যদি দুপুরে খান
Or
I am
I'm
having
having
my
rice in the morning. or I'm having
In
rice.
that case,
খালি তো ভাত
if
খাইতেছে না ভাই।
now is eating rice, then it will be I am eating rice.
হ্যাঁ।
আমি যদি
I'm
ভাত
eating
খাচ্ছি, yes,
rice.
I'm eating rice.
কিন্তু আপনি তো ভাতের সাথে ধরেন সবজিও খাচ্ছেন বা একটা হোল মিল খাচ্ছেন, অবভিয়াসলি আপনি তো খালি ভাতটা খাচ্ছেন না। সো ওটাই আর কি। এখন ভাতটা কোন সময় খাচ্ছেন, ভাতটা মানে ওইটা ম্যাটার করে। যদি রাত্রে বেলা খান তাহলে আপনি ডিনার খাচ্ছেন। So I'm having my dinner.
But regarding the sentence that you have written, like Ami bhat khaitesi, that means like right now
I
I'm
am
eating.
eating.
So it will be I'm eating rice. The translation of it.
কিন্তু খালি ভাত, অনলি রাইস। আপনি কিন্তু সবজিগুলো কিন্তু অ্যাড হবে না, বা মাংস যা এটা দিয়ে ভাত খাচ্ছেন এটা অ্যাড হবে।
Okay, and we have another comment. This is from someone.
চলে গেল তো কমেন্টটা এসে।
And
You
the
will
message says, to do well in IELTS speaking, you need to give importance to some things. I don't actually.
Obviously, we should give importance to many things. The criteria,
Yep.
of course, you should give the importance. But apart from that, you like to show your strength to the examiner. The first thing you could do is that paraphrase the questions that they gave you. Instead of like, if they say that what is your interest on, so you could say that I have a keen towards this thing. Instead of telling that I have interest on this thing, like try to be more creative and try to like paraphrase the question so that you could tell the examiner that you know more.
Well,
And off to Fayaz, what more can be said?
More can be said. Okay, so some things. So basically what I would advise is that while you're speaking, don't speak too fast, because if you speak too fast you might lose some points in fluency, because you might আপনি ধরেন আটকায় যেতে পারেন হঠাৎ করে. So what I always like, pace your speaking, don't speak too fast, don't speak too slow, have a nice pace, use your hands. You can use your hands to like control emotion, keep it natural.
As your voice, it's coming interrupted. So
It's coming interrupted. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
you're echoing.
It's basically the internet, I guess, or it could be because I'm in a closed room.
Enclosed walls. Within enclosed
Yes,
walls.
Yes, I'm within enclosed walls right now, and there's
I would like to add another tip for the
flies
exam.
around me.
Yeah, so what I was
I'm
saying
glad-
was a lot of people get nervous during their exam, and that like makes them not like they can't maintain their eye contact. So another major tip would be making eye contact with the examiner. You should make eye contact with the examiner, and you know, you should show them
Body
that you're.
gesture.
Yes, you should also add a few subtle gestures. You shouldn't be too you shouldn't be too animative. That'll just ruin your exam. Just just show that you're in the exam. Be confident. Show that you're confident in the language and stuff like that.
Of course, of course. Confidence does matter a lot actually when it comes to speaking, right?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Don't Candidates don't end up asking them if they say you like what is your name. You don't end up asking them what is your name too.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
just say my name
So
is this and then you end it. You cannot say them what is your name.
it's like an interview. It's not like a whole conversation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it won't be formal, it will be informal.
yeah.
Mm.
So
Okay, let's move
what
to
can we say about
paraphrase.
part one?
Like, Fayaz, can you like give them some common words which could be used in paraphrasing?
In paraphrasing, in
Yes,
paraphrasing what?
like common words. Like in case of your where do you live? You could use in case of house accommodation, right? So some
Yeah.
words like this which students can use, which a student can use.
So yeah. So if they ask me, uh, where do you live? So without instead of saying I live in here, you can say like accommodation is in here, or you can use words like that.
Fayaz, your voice
Why
is
don't you
really
go for it?
scary. I'm
My
sorry.
voice is
Your
what?
voice is really scary.
My voice is
Yeah.
getting scary. Is it
I
echoing a
think
Really
lot?
scary.
I think Fayaz is facing some network issues.
It feels like you're talking from
I
space.
don't know what I'm facing right now. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, you
But
can like we can hear you.
Nahida Apu just left the live.
Okay, Nahid left the live. I
Yeah,
think
don't worry about that. So Ifti,
yeah,
hello. So let's
yeah, I can
carry
hear you.
on with part one, right? So
Hmm.
okay, should we do like a mock test? Like give some examples. You ask me a couple questions. I could ask you a couple questions.
Well, I'm down. I mean, yeah, let's do it.
So you want to ask me first or what?
Yeah,
Or you want
let's
to
do
carry
it.
on?
So I mean, we are just gonna do a few questions which are usually asked in the part one of the IELTS speaking exam.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's do it. All right. So this is your IELTS speaking exam. I'm gonna act as the examiner. All right. So
All right.
can you state your full name, please?
My name is Mohammed Fayyaz Hassan.
Okay, and what should I call you?
You can call me Fayyaz because that's what my friends call me.
All right. And do you know who your next door neighbors are?
I do know who my next door neighbors are, but we are not that connected because they are kind of like moved in a couple months ago.
Okay. And are they friendly?
They do seem friendly for the small amount of time that I know them. We do have some our highs and hellos, like oh, how's your mom, how's your dad, and all that.
Yeah. And is it common in your country for neighbors to be close?
It is actually very common in our country for the neighbors to be close. Like actually it's pretty common tradition in here that oh if you don't have sugar in your house or if you need some spices you like just go next door and ask
Yep,
for
yep, that
the
is
sugar and
that is
spices.
pretty
Yeah,
common.
yeah, that is pretty common, right?
All right, now the main question: do you like your neighbors?
uh, well, I know them for a couple of months, but yeah, I do like my neighbors. I do like my neighbors. They don't disturb me at all. They don't come in my way or anything, and they're pretty friendly.
Pretty
So
quiet neighbors, huh?
yeah, pretty quiet neighbors.
All right, then why don't you ask me a few questions,
Yeah,
Imran?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Let's see. Let's ask you some difficult questions because you're the one with nine in speaking, right?
Yeah,
Let's see
I
what
don't
you
want to
got, bro.
flex about it, but
Let's
yeah.
see what you got. Okay. So, what type of friends do you have? Mostly your age or different ages?
Well, most of my friends are friends who I met during my high school, so most of them are my age. But I don't mind having friends who are younger or older than me.
Ah, okay. So, uh, do you have a large number of friends?
Well, I wouldn't say so. I would say I have a pretty small circle. I have a pretty small social circle. I would say I have about collectively 6 to 8 close friends, but I do talk with a lot of people. I like to be social, but if you like ask me, do I have some close friends? It would be only 6 to 7 close friends.
So, so what did you do with your friends the last time you saw them?
Well, I mean, most of my friends are abroad. They're pursuing their undergrad studies. But the last time I met a few of my friends, we met up. We gossiped for a while. We gossiped for about 2 hours, and we had a cup of coffee. And yeah, we just caught up.
That's nice. So I would like to point out to all our listeners right now that how casual we keep it. We're not we're not like, oh, we're very formal. This is a job
Yep.
interview. It's not like
Hmm.
that. It's more of a casual conversation, but it's one sided, which is true. Like in here, we're asking each other, but but you could keep it casual and keep it fluent. When you need to think, don't go like you can just look around, you can think, and you can answer it. Keep it casual, like a casual conversation. Don't get too caught up in using very hard vocab, or because you don't need to. You
Correct.
basically, or don't think about, oh, I have to paraphrase this. Keep it as natural as you can and as casual as possible. In that way, you will score more marks in your fluency, and even like all the other criterias there are, and just stay calm. Don't get nervous, because once you get nervous and you are on that tipping point, you keep on losing marks in fluency. You keep on
True.
thinking too much. You keep
Yes.
on thinking about the next words that you're going to say, which you should not do at all.
Mm. Another thing I would like to point out is, I mean, we know we are saying it's an informal exam, but keep in mind you should maintain your boundaries. Obviously, you can't. I mean, you can't use slangs or anything in the exam.
Yes, yeah.
It's definitely off board. You should like keep it casual. Just how you would talk to a normal person, how you would talk to a normal person, which whom you didn't know, something like
Mhm.
that. I mean, don't consider him your friend. The examiner is not your friend, but just talk to him on how you would speak on your native language. For example, for us, Bangla. আমরা বাংলা যেভাবে কথা বলি একজন মানুষের সাথে ওভাবেই আমরা মানে কি ইংলিশে পেজটা বলেন বা নর্মাল কনভারসেশনটা বলেন ক্যারি অন করে যাওয়ার চেষ্টা করি। Yes.
আপনি চিন্তা করতে পারবেন, আপনি একটু এদিক ওদিক তাকে আপনি চিন্তা করতে পারবেন। ডোন্ট থিঙ্ক লাইক আপনাকে সবসময় একটা উইয়ার্ড, একটা ক্রিপি একটা আই কন্ট্যাক্ট ক্রিয়েট করে রাখতে হবে তার
Yeah.
সাথে। সো লাইক কিপ ইট, তাই আমি বলতেছি যে কিপ ইট ক্যাজুয়াল,
Yeah.
অ্যান্ড স্টে কাম। দ্য কামার ইউ আর, মোর এখানের মধ্যে কোনো টাইম বাউন্ডারিজ কিন্তু নাই যে আপনাকে, আনলেস ইউর ইন ইউর কিউ কার্ড, যেখানে 2 মিনিটের মধ্যে শেষ করতে হবে, বাকি কিন্তু আপনার কোনো টাইম বাউন্ডারিজ নাই। সো কিপ অন টকিং, বাট
Right.
পার্ট ওয়ানে ডোন্ট মেক ইউর অ্যান্সার্স টু লং or you're gonna get
Yeah,
interrupted.
it should be brief. Don't go
Yeah.
above like 3 max 4 sentences. Like that makes it too big. And
Yeah,
like I said, to be more casual, you can use gestures. Like like whenever you're pointing out things, you can use your fingers. Like there's one,
yeah.
two, third, stuff like that. But obviously, again, just keep it casual. Yeah, hopefully you'll do well in your part one exam.
Yeah,
So
it's
those
going
were the tips for part one. We will be back, right?
with tips on part two and
Yep.
part three. So stay connected to this page.
Yeah, and we'll
You
see you guys
can
again.
message. You can message. You can message the
Yeah,
page.
just if you
Want
guys have any
info.
questions, you guys can actually comment. Well, Merajul Karim Rahi says, Assalamu alaikum, sir. Well,
এখানে
walaikum
তো কোনো
assalam.
ম্যাডাম নাই ভাইয়া, বাট হ্যাঁ,
Yes,
ওয়ালাইকুম
but
আসসালাম।
this is actually our student. I've actually
Oh,
noticed right now. So, yeah, welcome to the stream.
over the stream, but the stream has
Live.
almost ended already.
Yeah, that's the thing. You should have joined earlier. Okay, so
Talk about some time management tricks which we should maintain to achieve a high score in speaking. Are you talking about speaking, time management in speaking?
okay, yeah. So I think what she's trying to ask is, for example, a lot of people can't complete their questions in part two. Like, we actually have like 4 questions in part two Q card, but we just like end up only saying 2 in 2 minutes. So a common tip or
Yeah. Okay, go on. Yeah.
tip which I would give, I mean, we will listen to Fires by Strip as a tip as well, but a tip which I would suggest is within the first 1.5 minute, try to complete the first 3 questions, or just try to answer the first three questions, and the last one, it's basically about your opinion. So it's more like how do you feel about it, or what is your take on this, or what is your opinion. So elaborate that as much as possible until the examiner says, well, that is enough, or let's move on to part three, or thank you for your answer. So that's my tip. Like, just on the last part, just elaborate as long as you like, as long as you can. But yeah, be brief, or not brief, just try to complete the first three questions, the first three questions in your cue card within 1.5 minutes. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have anything else to add?
Yeah, for me, the little thing that I do while I gave my speaking exam was I answered the first three questions in like the first 5 sentences, and then I just carried on. And it's not like, oh, you have to answer the first question first, the second question second, the third question. It's like you just have to touch on those topics. And the
Yeah.
opinion part, basically you're speaking about your opinion throughout the whole thing, so you can just add it in
Yeah, you
anywhere.
can add a lot of things. You can talk about personal experiences. You can talk about like the way you feel. Just
Use your
talk.
creativity, use all that imagination and let it
Yep,
come to life.
yep. And yeah, another thing, you can actually lie in your exam. It's not
Yeah.
that you
Lie
can't
about
lie, but
anything.
just lie logically, man. Don't like
Lie about
do something. Don't lie. Like don't say stuff which are unbelievable. You can lie. You can lie to help you in your exam. I'm saying again, to help you in your exam. But yeah. Oh, we actually have Nahid Apu coming back. So I think
Nahidapu, do you have any more pointers that you want to give us?
think
Okay,
I think
okay.
Nahid Apu left because of some network issues, but
Yeah.
she's coming back. I think she's trying to reconnect. Oh, so there you are.
Sorry for the
Oh,
interruption. Poor net
oh,
connection. I'm
there
sorry.
you are.
No worries. We all face it. I mean, it's a
Where
common
have
issue.
you been,
Did I
Miss
miss a
Nahid?
lot?
Yeah, you actually did miss a lot. We actually did a whole demo thing.
Yeah, we actually finished the
Done.
whole. Well, do you have any
So
final tips to add
yeah,
for?
yeah, I'll give part one some pointers, some confidence, how to gain confidence and whatnot.
First of all, I'll say that answering briefly does not mean that you finish in one sentence. You try to talk for two sentences, but keep the time at your head. Like time management is the important factors because examiner has to move on to other question. So he may interrupt you if you take too long. That does not mean that you are giving wrong answer. So just be confident if the examiner stops you. That means you're on the right track. But since you have shortage of time, that's why he's interrupting you. And moving on to the other question regarding uh, part one. So
Yes.
time management is really an important thing because in part one you have 10 or 12 sets of questions, and it should be like questions within a fixed given frame of time. So the examiner may hurry. That does not mean that your answer is wrong or your answer is inappropriate. So be confident if you get like stopped by the examiner. So that's what I'm gonna say about it.
Well,
All
I
right,
mean,
all right.
my examiner did stop me in my part two, and I got scared. I was like, okay, did I do something wrong? But
No,
there's
no.
nothing to
In
worry
part
about.
two, it's like general to stop you, but in part one they don't
Yeah.
because we give the answer briefly. But in my case, I was stopped because like I was talking too much, maybe for that
I
reason. So yeah, in that case, that's what I'm telling. In part two, it's cool to get stopped. That means you're on the right
Yep.
track. But in part
Hmm.
one also you may get stopped, but that does not mean that your answer is not appropriate.
It's just
Okay,
you
because
just
he
don't.
has this other sets of questions that he has to ask you within that given frame of time. That's why he's stopping you to move on to other question.
Yep.
So
And Faiz,
are
why
we
don't you
done
share
for this?
about your
What?
experience
My
about
experience.
part one? Yes.
My experience about part one. My experience about part one was actually, if I can remember, it was actually pretty straightforward. I just kept it casual. He asked me questions. He did not stop me. He did not stop me. It was like more like I was having a conversation. Throughout the whole exam, actually, I kept it very casual, and that was my way. I spoke slowly, So that's like I practiced what I preach. So yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did throughout the exam.
And other than that, it's like I would try to share another one tip with you guys. That is like you don't have to give a sophisticated answer. Just give a simple
Not at all.
answer. Okay,
Yeah.
you don't have to show yourself like I'm in a standard level of this thing. No, just keep it as
Doesn't matter.
how could I say, as real as it could be. If someone asks you, do you think that taking mobile phones in the exam center should be allowed? You should happily say yes, I think so. It should be. And if they
I
ask
mean,
you why, because I could get good marks. So
yeah.
you could be like you could give an honest reply. Your
Yes, your opinion
remember,
doesn't really matter to the
yes,
examiner.
remember that
Basically, your
speaking is
language,
not
basically
a
your English language
uh,
would matter.
yes, speaking is not a knowledge test. It's your communication test. It's like how well you're understanding the question and how well you're responding to that question. It's not like what you're giving or your opinion. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that whether you're getting the question and you're answering it properly or not. That's the thing. Like I have one of my students who just casually said that I would love to take a mobile phone in my exam because using that I could achieve a good grade. And the examiner was also so friendly and he like laughed out loud. So it's
So
okay.
we all
Like completely be yourself.
yep.
Yes.
Okay, we actually have a new comment by Tahsin Farooqia, and she asks, "What type of questions are made in part one?" It's actually a pretty good question. Well, basically, the questions you'll find in part one are well, the first three questions are basically introduction of yourself, and it's followed
Mainly
by questions.
it is about yourself. The questions is
Yeah,
about yourself. Like it's a
yeah,
warm-up question to like make
mhm,
you adjust your comfort level so that you don't get tensed and you
Yeah.
don't lose your confidence. It's all about
mhm.
you. They will ask about you the pretty simple questions. For some time you'll feel like why are they asking me such silly questions? Like they even there's one question they'll say that do you like to look at the sky? It sounds silly, but that's the question. Like it's to like get you into your comfort zone.
Yep. It's basically your introduction, and it'll be followed by a common topic. Any common topic. It could be about fashion. It could be about nature, vacation, anything. And yeah, it'll be they'll ask you a series of questions on that topic.
So I think that's enough for part one, right? We're coming back next week with our pointers on part two and also part
Yes,
three pretty soon.
we are, and we will see you
Let's
guys again.
just wait for a few minutes if any new comments pop up, and then we'll
Yeah,
continue
sure.
the
If you
text
guys have
and
any
the
questions,
like.
Yes, please, please, questions come in.
okay. Okay, we have another question by Irene Trisha, and it says,
Look, I need you to
which
wait for a
thing
few minutes.
Okay, and she asks which things we should avoid during IELTS speaking.
Which things should we avoid?
Well,
I don't
one
want
thing
to
I would
be
say
that
that during
person.
IELTS speaking, one thing you should avoid that is don't constantly gaze at the examiner like,
Yeah,
no, he will get afraid. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
someone does that like that. So don't constantly gaze into the eyes of the examiner. Be yourself, be
yeah,
cool, act cool. And never use slang. Like it's an informal
yep,
test, but that does not mean
yep.
that you can use slang.
No, we actually
exactly.
talked about this. Slang is a no-no in this exam. Uh,
Yo,
and moreover, other things to avoid are like taking long pauses, taking breaks, stuttering, or repeating words. That is pretty common here with the
A
students.
good way to avoid stuttering is just use some fillers that could buy you
Yep.
some time.
Yeah.
so it's like
So for
it could
example,
be
And
like,
follow, uh, yeah.
like,
Like,
like.
taking
yeah.
stuttering
You
for
know
one, two
what?
times is quite okay, but don't take more than one, two times because it's natural to stutter. But
Yep.
over stuttering can reduce your mark.
Well, I was
Mm,
actually asked about an opinion in my exam, and I didn't know what to say. So I had to buy time by saying stuff like, "Well, I haven't thought about this, but if I had to say, I would choose this."
yeah, yeah.
So I used like 3 seconds to think up something instantly. So yeah, so that didn't cause me. That I mean, that didn't cause me like that didn't end up me saying or oh yeah.
Other than that, like to increase your point on view, you could say that you have two-sided view on this. Like I'm a bit on the fence about this topic. On one side I
Yep.
support the advantages, on the other side I support the disadvantages. So in that way you could elongate your conversation.
Mhm. Yep.
100%.
But another thing that you should avoid in IELTS speaking is overuse of idioms. You know idioms,
Mm,
but don't overuse it. At least two to three is enough. But
yeah, it's good
overusing
to
it
throw
means
a
like
few
you're
over there.
memorizing it.
Don't use too much. Yep.
You cannot overuse your idioms. 1 to 2 times using idioms is good, but like there, never use idioms that you memorize. Try to fit it in the situation. There are some
Yeah,
students who think that idioms can give me a high band score, but when you use it properly, they just use idioms in everywhere. That could lead to like a negative band score,
just
a low
learn a
band
few
score.
and then use the one which goes with the flow. Don't try to force an idiom on your
Yeah.
sentence. Just use the one which goes.
Don't try to force anything throughout the exam, or
Yeah,
you'll just
don't.
lose
Yeah,
points on fluency.
just go with the flow. Yep.
Yeah.
Another good point an examiner may appreciate is your self-correction. Like if you like accidentally spit out something like that's not making sense, you could say that sorry, and then you could correct yourself the sentence, and then you can say it again. But don't use it often. 1 2 times it's okay, but you cannot use it often.
Just use it when you make a mistake, when you make an honest mistake. Should
Okay,
that
I
be
think.
enough for today?
Yep, I think. Okay, so we have actually another question by
Oh wow.
Trisha. So I think she's watching our live attentively. So, is it okay to speak slowly in speaking part two? Well, okay, to know
We
that
are
Absolutely.
going
answer,
to come back with
you have
part
to
two
wait.
next week.
Yep,
No.
you'll actually have
The
to
thing is,
wait.
You
you're
have to
speaking.
wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, you have to wait for part two. We'll answer this question in the next session. But I would say that a little bit glimpse. I would say that no, it's not good to speak slow. Later on, I'll
Yeah,
give in brief
know your
discussion in
answer.
the
Be sure
next session.
to join next week, and yeah,
The
you'll
next
get,
session.
hopefully you'll get to know your answer. Okay, then. So I think that's it.
That'll be it for
If
today,
anyone
then,
has any
guys.
question, if anyone has any question regarding to part one, so in the next week when we come live, you could like drop your comments. We'll try to answer
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you all
for
for
today.
joining.
Thank you for joining. Allah Hafiz, guys.
Okay. Bye.
Allah Hafiz.
Stay
See you.
safe. Take
Stay
care.
happy. Stay healthy. See you soon.
Stay healthy.
Bye.
See you
Bye
soon,
bye.
guys. Goodbye.